Vice Chair Clay, it is 5:30 and we are now recording. And we have a quorum.
All right, great. So I'd like to welcome you to the Commission on Equity meeting February 27th, 2023. Our first item agenda is to approve the agenda, previous minutes, and the consent items. Do I hear a motion?
Chair, on the agenda, I would just add that in place of Alanis for the inspirational item, she sent me a poem to read in her stead. She was not able to attend tonight.
Thank
But with
you.
that, I move for adoption of the amended agenda.
I second.
Second, okay. Commissioner Hart moved that we approve the agenda, previous minutes.
I believe that was Jackson.
Jackson.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Sauer is the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so moved. Second item, is there a public time for public comment, which we encourage? Is there anybody in the room there present that would like to speak?
Vice Chair Clay, there is no one here who wants to provide public comment in person.
Okay, how about on the Zoom link?
Now, for any attendees who are watching currently, if you'd like to raise your hand to signify that you would like to provide public comment. Vice Chair Clay, I don't see any attendees raising their hand to provide public comment.
Okay, last thing is phone, by phone.
Vice Chair Clay, there is no attendees by phone.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Then we will move on to Commissioner Hart offering us an inspirational item.
Commissioner Jackson.
Oh,
That's okay.
it's very hard to see you all. So, all right. Commissioner Jackson.
At the request of Alanis, I'll offer the following poem that she authored, that she had prepared for tonight, but she couldn't be here. When I hear Martin Luther King, I hear of inspirational dreams, of church bells ring, while the choir sings a song of faith and all sort of things. Generational curses broken, eyes awoken, lies unfolded, and community ties finally remolded. After centuries of systematic separation, like roots of a tree, they started from the foundation. Until the vibration of the forest has lost its hydration, they tried, but Black power is too divine. Dr. King says, you are the water, you are the healer, you are the dream. He was destined to believe so you and me would hear the philosophy and do things never before seen. Say what you mean, step out of your routine. Don't be a machine, because when he said he had a dream, he also said it starts with you. Written by Alanis Blackburn, our youth commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. May I have a volunteer to do next month's meeting inspiration?
I'll do it.
All right, Commissioner Hart. Thank you.
Welcome.
As Shannon suggested, my internet is a little bit unstable. Out of town here. Would Commissioner Jackson or Hart like to jump in if I somehow freeze?
do not have the agenda. Sure, be glad to.
All right, Commissioner Jackson. We're in good hands if you lose me. Right, on to number 4, business items. The equity efforts at local education institutions. I'm wondering how, Shannon, you would like to structure this.
Sure. Well, Vice Chair and Commissioners, good evening. It's good to have you all here. And I know we've got a couple of guests here as well from our local education institutions. If you recall, throughout last year and through this year, there has been several requests from commissioners to learn a little bit more about the equity efforts that are going on in our local education institutions. We have reached out to Pope John Paul II, North Thurston Public Schools, as well as to South Sound Community College and St. Martin's as well, to try to get representatives here to provide a little bit of updates on, what's going on at their institutions, and then also to have some conversations in ways that, maybe we can take a look at partnering or collaborating on future events. So with that, we've got guests here again from Pope John Paul II High School, as well as North Thurston Public Schools. And so Vice Chair, on the question of how to proceed, I would like to start off with Pope John Paul II, providing an update, and then we'll move on to North Thurston Public Schools.
Okay, all right. So this is Teresa Allen, principal of Pope John Paul.
Thank you. And thank you, commissioners, for inviting me to speak today. So when I talked to Shannon, she said that kind of to start with a little bit of a history of JP2, because we're fairly new in the community, so that you could know a little bit more about us and who we serve and what our mission is. And before I kind of jump into the topic. So we started a committee in 2004 to explore opening a Catholic high school in this area. We got to the point where we were advanced to hire first staff in 2008, and we opened in 2010. Time period, where that hit in the economy in 2008 made things difficult. So we ended up opening in a leased facility, which wasn't the original plan. But we are in Lacey in the old fire station. If you've driven by, you've probably recognized it. Doesn't look like a fish selling market anymore, or any of those things that it was in between. So we're very happy to be in the city of Lacey and to be in partnership with Lacey. It's been a great location for us for a variety of reasons. We opened in 2010. We had 20 students at that time. They were in 9th and 10th grade, and then we advanced classes. So our first graduation was in 2013. So this is our 10th anniversary of graduations, and we're going to have a big alumni celebration this year. So that's kind of exciting too. We are a college prep high school specifically. We don't unfortunately have the capability of programs for vocational or other additional education programs that I wish we did, but we're starting right now. I have 102 students in grades 9 through 10, 9 through 12. And our student to teacher ratio is 1 to 11. So we do a lot of individualized work. We're very flexible with our students. We have a lot of honors classes. We have AP classes. We have students who need additional help. We have tutoring that we provide. But we really are focused as a college prep school. One of the things that I love about JP2 is being small, that 93% of our students participate in co-curricular activities of some form, whether that's athletics every season for many of them, multicultural club, which I'll talk more about, and robotics, athletics. We have a chess club, a green club, a writing club, all kinds of different activities. And most of the clubs were started by students. They got to say, hey, we're interested in starting something, and they chose to do that. So including multicultural club came out of that. So that's been exciting. We're in the 1B CTAC League. If that means anything to you, that means we're really small. And we have 10 athletic teams, but we've won 4 state championships in that amount of time. And I just found out on Friday night that my girls basketball team won the 1B state academic championship. So they have the highest average GPA for all of the girls basketball teams in our size classification. So exciting things happening. Our students, as part of our program, are required to I don't want to say give, but they're required to volunteer for over 80 community service hours. So 80 is the standard, and many do more than 80. Our community service hours are very focused because they have to be targeted, particularly sophomore through senior year, to disenfranchised populations, not just community in general. So we're specific about the type of service that they do and how they come back and think about that and reflect on that. And then by the time they become a senior, they give a paper reflection on their service and how it impacted them. So we are out in the community quite a bit. Our mission, which is to develop young men and women who are intellectually strong, spiritually alive, and committed to the service of others. We are a private school, but we have a lot of financial aid available. Our goal is to be available to as many students as want a Catholic education. And we're a Catholic school, so we're part of the Archdiocese of Seattle. And so when we start to look at equity, we look at it through the Catholic social teaching lens. And there are 7 very specific Catholic social teachings that we talk to kids about. We talk to kids in a variety of different places. In our education system, we have community focused classes. One of our classes that happens in our regular day is called Community Period, where we talk about all kinds of things in Community Period that don't really fit into a standard high school curriculum. So things like financial literacy, things like the 16 Habits of Mind, or Catholic social teachings and multicultural events. We actually on Friday had some speakers for Black History Month. So we use that time as a way and an opportunity to talk to the students about community and about what it means to be in community. Who is your neighbor? Well, with solidarity as one of the Catholic social teachings, that everyone is your neighbor. We're all part of one human family, and we talk about it through that lens. Those are some of the big pieces that we talk about. And I know as a staff, and again, we're small, so it's a lot of us doing multiple things, which is kind of the way it works in a small environment. But we're working to continue to build different programs as we look at more specifically into DEI conversations. The administrative team right now is reading a book about cultural humility that we're looking to how to incorporate some of that training into what we're doing with the kids as well. So there's a few things that we're starting to work through on the administrative side. We have students who are working through the Multicultural Club, and we have an International Day. We do all kinds of celebrations. We actually have potlucks in school because we're small enough we can do that. And we have people bring in things from their culture and talk about their culture. So we have a variety of flexible ways that we can talk with students about a lot of different issues, including the DEI conversations, which they kind of come and go at different times and different interests, but certainly Black History Month, we've been reading announcements every morning. There's something highlighted. So we do that throughout when things are appropriate. So. And I think one of the other things that you asked me to talk about was different ways that we could partner with the city. And really one of the things that we do every year is called the Day of Service. And it's the last day before Christmas break, where we send all of our students and teachers out into the community into service. So this last year, we had students at the Boys and Girls Club of Tumwater. We had students at Kakua. We had students at Safe Place, students at Lacey Elementary, Thurston County Food Project, Lacey Food Pantry, Table Grace Feeding Ministry, Hats for the Homeless. All kids win the small village in Olympia that I forget the name of.
Plum Village?
Yeah, and
What?
Rebuilding Together and Lacey Senior Center.
Plum Village.
Thank you.
Plum. Yep.
A village?
Yes, it's a tiny home community in Lacey, or
Oh, a
City of
tiny
Olympia,
home,
excuse me.
Tiny home. Community, okay, Plum Village. That's good, that's news.
So one of the things, we have a really hard time placing all 100 students on that day or however many we have. I would love to have some more ideas or different groups that might need some assistance on that day. Part of it tends to end up being, you know, it's usually a Friday in December, and that day as a day doesn't work out for some of the organizations. But if there are ways to partnership in meaningful ways for our students, we start with mass, then they go out and serve, and then they come back and reflect on their service, and then of course we have a Christmas party. But it would be great to have more partnerships with that as well.
Great, thank you, thank you. I think we'll hear from Dr. Antonio Sandifer from Thurston County Public Schools, North Thurston Public Schools, and then hopefully we'll have time for some questions.
Vice Chair Clay,
Yes.
just a question maybe for Principal Allen. Would you like to stay, or would you like questions now so you can?
I'm fine staying.
Okay, fantastic. All right, thank you.
Flyer here, so I'm sorry, Vice President Clay, you know, they forget this flyer. Excuse me. And I have a PowerPoint too, so I hope I won't be too long with it.
Let's click through the slideshow.
Well, so my title is the Director of Equity and Languages. So what I do, not only the equity work for the district, but oversee all the language work, which is consist of our world languages and our English language learners program as well, and our Native American students program and our mentoring program. So it's a lot of work there. And so we combine all of this work that we're doing as equity work. Here on this flyer, I'm gonna just give you something just so you can walk away with. Don't have a lot of slides, a lot of talking. This is a little snapshot. Our approach to equity in the district is removing the barriers to students to succeed. And those barriers are wide and far, they're very big. It could be racial barriers, could be academic barriers, could be economical barriers. These barriers, our goal is to try to remove them so it looks different depending on the situation for that particular student. We're ensuring at North Thurston Public Schools, we want every student to learn, grow, and graduate into rewarding careers and fulfilling lives. Ensuring every student has resources and support needed to succeed in our equity work. Every day and in every classroom, our district staff remove barriers to success by providing these critical supports and resources to our students. We also work tirelessly to foster a culture of inclusion and belonging, creating a safe and respectful environment where every student can thrive. We have district equity norms posted in meeting spaces to remind us of our commitment. So on that note, I'm going to go through some of the slides and then ask questions. So one of the major works that we're doing around our racial equity work is we've adopted the social justice standards. These come from a national organization called, of course it will slip my mind right now, but these equity norms, they're used across the nation in an educational setting where we're focusing on identity, diversity, justice, and action. And for the last 3 years, what we have done, me and my staff, we created what's called mini lessons. Now, the mini lessons, I go back, that's okay for now. I'll come back to this. The mini lessons have been designed to where I teach the building principles, the lessons. Then the building principals, along with their equity teams, will teach those lessons to their teachers. And our goal for these 4 standards, thank you, is for the teachers to now use these standards along with the state standards. For example, if you're teaching ELA, there's a long list, I'm sorry, I'm using acronyms, English language arts. If you're teaching English language arts, there's a long list of standards that all of our kids must get. We also want you to include all 4 of these standards in there. So if I'm a student in your classroom, I should be able to see my identity, my diversity, and justice and action within your curriculum. along with teaching the state standards too. So we've been working on this for 3 years. It's again, to make sure the teachers are comfortable with how to implement this and bring this into their current classroom on a consistent basis. So in North Thurston School District, we have, this is our instructional vision of the work that we're doing. So around diversity, we have something called UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning. That means that we understand that our students, especially our students of color, learn in a variety of ways. Every kid, especially myself, was not a kid that could just sit in the classroom and you just lecture at me. I couldn't do it. That way, they labeled me bad, they put me in special ed, and now I have a doctorate degree. It's because I couldn't sit there, but you give me up and do something with my hand, I get to moving, I was perfect. And I graduated with honors when they figured out how to make me learn. So what we do with our UDL is figure out what's the best learning approach for our students. And some of our classrooms, we even have these big pushy chairs where the kids sit in the chair where they can rock around and roll, whatever it needs to make you learn, we're there to accommodate them. And we also understand that when we're doing projects, some kids like to work independently, some like to work in a group, some want to do a PowerPoint presentation. Other students just want to just write a paper. So we do multiple approaches to show us that you understand. That's part of equity work, the academic part of equity work. We also have GLAD. GLAD is our curriculum that we use, very diverse too, for our English language learner students. Because we understand that's a huge barrier when you don't speak the language. So we've done a lot of work around that. We're there to try to alleviate a lot of those barriers so those students can be successful. One of the greatest things that I like about our district is our graduation. Our goal is that every kid would graduate, and we don't put the barrier of 4 years on it. You know, most people think, oh, you got to graduate in 4 years. You might graduate in 5, you might graduate in 6 years. Our goal is that every student would graduate at your own pace, your own level. We also have SEL, which is social emotional learning. So, because education is continuing to evolve, we're realizing things that we might have done 40 years, 20 years ago when I was in school, not 40, that didn't work back then, but now we figure out other ways to make it work. And social emotional learning is critical, that if a kid is not sociable or they feeling they're being bullied and intimidated, it affects their ability to learn. So we have training and we have lessons that the kids take as well as the adults on how to handle your emotions in the classroom and how do we talk about not bullying, not using harassment. We have a term called HIB, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, where we address all those areas, what this actually means. Because some kids think, oh, we're just picking, we're just having fun. But no, actually that could be harassment. It could be racial harassment, sexual harassment, to really educate them on these type of terms. And then AVID is our advanced learning academic approach. So education, sometimes I'm trying to go fast because I don't have time. Then we have justice, a restorative practice piece right here. Let's see if I move this out of the way. So justice is our restorative practices. So starting next year at all 3 of our high schools, River Ridge is way ahead. We've done a lot of work with River Ridge this year. So they're ahead of the game. We're having what's called a restorative center, that when students have issues with student to student or student to staff, we have a center of trained adults, and we already got 77 students that have signed up to be what they call mentors or facilitators as a part of that work. So we help them to work on that relationship to restore it back. Because sometimes we just fall out with people for various reasons. We might be a misunderstanding. So we bring them to the table where we have students that's been trained, and we're in the process of training them as well as the adults on how to work with your peers or your colleagues. We do it a lot of time with adults to adults right now, to how to restore that relationship so we have a working environment. And we did a lot of test studies and a lot of work this year at River Ridge because we had to restore some stuff that was broken there from down through the years. So we've been doing a lot of work. What's at River Ridge is a little bit ahead of some of the other schools. Then identity is what we focus on, who I am and my culture. One of the curriculums that we use that's required is since time immemorial. This is for our Native American curriculum. As we know, we sit on the Nisqually lands, and we want those students that are Nisquallies, Lushootseed, whatever culture, whatever tribe that they're from, not Lushootseed, that's the language, excuse me, so Squaxin Island, that we are honoring that. So we have a huge celebration coming up for Billy Frank Jr. on next week, actually. It's Billy Frank Jr. Day, and we have curriculum for every grade level where we're implementing this on a consistent basis throughout the school year. And in action, it's our social justice standards. As I said, those 4 standards that we're teaching to all grade levels, all teachers, our staff, to understand that action looks different according to what's making you comfortable. Some of us may feel like we need to go out and protest. And other kids feel like, no, I just need to go sit down at the table and have a conversation about how I'm feeling so we can fix this problem. So we teach students how to take action, and then your action might not look like somebody else's, but it's still action. Even as simple as writing a letter to your governor about what's going on in your school, that's action. So we teach those variety of things. Okay. So this is just, again, a social justice mini lessons. I required the building principals within these months. These are the different lessons that they teach their staff. And this has been, like I said, happening for the last 3 years. We also have a project called One School, One Book campaign at our elementary school. So every one of our elementary schools across the district are either in year 2 or year 1 of this campaign. What the campaign is, every month that we picked a multicultural book. And what the book is full curriculum that goes with it, the lesson, the activities that ties to it. This month, during the month of February, we focused on Black as a Rainbow Color, which focused on and celebrated the Black diaspora. Those people, not just Dr. Martin Luther King, but a lot of even our local people, such as Dr. Jackson, excuse me, this right here in our person right now. Excellent, a person that have paved the way for many of us to be here today. So I'm grateful for it, for sure. And so we look at local people, and they did projects on it. Tomorrow night, which I'm getting ahead of myself, we have a community cafe, and I'm gonna have some of those activities, those research, those projects at the cafe tomorrow to show the research work that the kids did on people that made a difference in their life. Not just, like I said, historical figures like Dr. Martin Luther King, wonderful, he was great, but they might not have been personal, may have a grandparent that was personal that made a difference in their lives. Right. So we do this campaign every month. We've adopted it. We were lucky to have Twin Star gave us a grant to purchase the books, because books are very expensive, but they gave us a grant to purchase these books for year 1. And the same thing, a whole set of books for year 2. These schools were our very first year. So we purchased 1 book per each classroom, and the teacher takes a few days out the month reading the book and doing various lessons and activities. So our kids get a diaspora. Not only does it deal with race, but it deals with culture, all 4 of those social justice standards: identity, diversity. I forgot my other standards, I'm talking fast, but it deals with all of them, and even deals with disability. This one here focuses on a young lady who was fighting for the rights of students with disabilities. So now any kid can see themselves within these books over the year, who they are, their identity is in it. All right, conversational Spanish. In our North Thurston School District, our second language in our population of students that speak the most language is Spanish. Over probably about 30% of our students are from Spanish-speaking families in our district. And we realize that, and when those families come in our building, we don't want them to feel uncomfortable because we can't communicate with them. So we offer basic conversational Spanish class to our teachers. I've taken it and I'm still struggling with it. It's just this old Southern country boy, I can't get it out right. But we are struggling. We have offered it several times throughout the year, just basic conversational. We're not going to great depth. You can take quite a class for that. We just want at least enough to say hello to someone. How are you doing in their language? Make them feel like, hey, you are at least trying to make me feel like I'm a part of this work. So we do that as well. This is a great program that I'm super excited about. Our dual language program. Now, because we have such a large population of Spanish-speaking students in our district, we decided to offer a dual language program at Lydia Hawk Elementary. It started 3 years ago in the kindergarten classroom. And what that looks like is one of their classrooms, the whole day is taught in Spanish, the other whole day is taught in English. And they switch, so 50% of their day is in English, 50% of their day is in Spanish. So our goal, by the time they get to middle school, most of all those students will be fluent in a second language. And 50% of our kids in the classroom are English-speaking kids, and the other 50% are from Spanish-speaking homes. And now, because the program has been there, it's in the 3rd year. The kids stay in a cohort. They go from kindergarten to 1st grade, 2nd grade together. They're in 2nd grade right now. We're going to start a new program at Mountain View Elementary next year in kindergarten, doing the same thing. Our goal is to have it at all of our elementary schools, but again, that takes a lot of money, and that's on the legislation docket this year about giving us more funding to offer more dual language programs. Yeah. Okay. All right, next. Our K-8 world languages, because we realized some reason, and somebody, great idea many, many hundred years ago, decided that we should teach world language, Spanish, German, French, to high schoolers. Well, by the time they get to high school, it's a little bit too late to teach that. That's why I said keep struggling with trying to learn Spanish. The research has shown us the best way to do it is actually as early as preschool. when they first started teaching, they introduced these different languages. So we are looking at a K-8 world language model. And when I talk about this is diversity, this is always spread. Now we're looking at all different models of it. Is that we're looking at introducing at the elementary level within the next 2 years, what's called an exploratory language program. So every 8 weeks, they would be introduced to a new language. So for example, this 8 weeks, I'm learning Spanish. Next 8 weeks, they get French. Next 8 weeks, they get German. So within the school year, they just introduced to different languages. No, they're not gonna become proficient in it, but at least they will have the opportunity to be exposed to it. And which many of us didn't get exposed to any languages until we was in high school. We wanted them to start as early as kindergarten to be exposed to the various languages. And then at the middle school level, we would do more content level classes. For example, if you've been in a dual language program, then you will have a dual language, a Spanish English class. Your English class will be taught in Spanish, or your math class will be taught in Spanish because you've been in that dual language program already for 5 years. Then we have some heritage classes that we offer. Again, we're big on wanting people to see themselves in the curriculum, see your culture. So we offer a Spanish heritage class at North Thurston High School and at River Ridge High School. We have a Native American heritage class and a Native American studies class as well at River Ridge High School. We have let me go back to this. We have Since Time Immemorial curriculum at all of our schools across the district, every one of them. And then we're looking at becoming a part of a pilot. There's a pilot for an AP African American Heritage class, the same class that the governor of Florida has dismissed and will not let them teach it in Florida. So we're trying to be a part of that pilot here, to teach an AP African American Heritage class at River Ridge High School because the teachers are requesting it. Okay. We also work very closely with our tribal. Right now we have Nisqually-Lushootseed language lunchtime enrichment. What that means is they come into our building, River Ridge High School and Evergreen Forest Elementary, twice a month. And they do lunchtime where they have the kids come in there, eat pizza, and they're introducing them to their native language. Most of these are Nisqually students, and they have lunchtime where they're learning Lushootseed language. We were in the process of making a Lushootseed class, Lushootseed language class for next school year, but Nisqually isn't ready yet. They're still getting their teachers developed for it. But in the coming years, hopefully, if not next year, the year after, we know it won't be next year, but the year after, we're hoping that we will have a class at River Ridge High School for credit, where they be actually earning, this is their language. Instead of Spanish or French, Lushootseed would be their language class. Okay, we offered community cafes. Last year, we did the Black African American Community Cafe. No, we did not. We just did that in January because Dr. Jackson was there and Ms. Clay was at that community cafe as well. Biracial family one is tomorrow night, and we have an ELL one in May. And the purpose of these community cafes is to find out what can we do better to make you feel like you're included, that you are part of it. And the information we've got has been amazing. The information from last year is why we got a lot of this extra stuff happening for our ELL students this year is because of what we heard from the families last year. Because I didn't know those barriers. I've always spoke English, broken English, but I've spoken it. And now I've been able to understand those barriers of people that don't speak English. So we've made a whole lot of changes in our ELL program to service them better. Okay. Revising our ELL, same as what I was saying. So this is some of the things that we're doing in our ELL program. We're keeping all our newcomers. And so newcomers is for those students that come to our country that do not speak no English. Every day we have tons of students coming into our district. That's right now we have about 1,003 ELL students. That means they're not proficient in English in our school district, but we still got to teach them, right? We got to educate them. And what we were doing at our secondary level, that's our middle school and our high school, we would bus all across the district, all these kids to Chinook Middle School or Nisqually High School, North Thurston High School. Well, that's a barrier. Busing kids is a barrier. Moving them out of their home school is a barrier. And next year, we're eliminating that barrier. We're no longer doing that. We're going to keep them at their home school, and we're going to train their teachers how to teach those non-speaking English students at their home schools. So there's a lot of PD, what we call professional development, that's going to be happening over the next couple of months to get us ready for that. And that because, again, I found that out when I had the community cafe last year. I didn't know that was a barrier to families. We provide more professional development, I just said. Evaluating the current curriculum. What we're doing is not working for some reason. The curriculum that we're using is not working with our ELL students because they're not what we call testing out of the program or becoming proficient. So I'm reevaluating it, looking at a different type of approach to it. Because what we used to do might have used to work for a different generation. This is the post-COVID generation. And what we used to do does not work anymore. And we're implementing what's called content sheltered instruction. So for example, right now, if I'm a newcomer to America, I speak no English, but you put me in an algebra class. Do you think I'm gonna succeed? No, that's happened all across our schools everywhere. So next year, what we're gonna be doing is have a content class. For example, all of our ELL students will be together in a math class. So they can learn together from their ELL teacher instead of putting them in a general ed class where they're not gonna be able to be successful. So again, things that we're finding out with barriers and we're making the changes with it. All right, ethnic studies. I won't read all this here, but ethnic studies is a interdisciplinary studies. Ethnic studies in our district is not a class. Many districts that you go to, they have at the high school, an ethnic studies class. No, we are implementing ethnic studies K-12. That at every grade level, they're gonna implement ethnic studies within their current content level. So we have an awesome elementary school teacher that does a fabulous job to her fifth graders there over at Meadows Elementary. And what we've done, we've made small cohorts of teachers that go through the training that you need to be trained on how to be an ethnic studies teacher. Because it's not like, oh, this is the book, read the lesson. No, it's a pedagogy. It's how you see, how you believe that students should learn. And so what we did, the first year we had 8 teachers that volunteered for it. Last year we had 28 teachers. This year we have 32 teachers. So by the end of this year, we will have over 50 teachers in our district that are trained ethnic studies teachers that are doing it. Most of them are at the elementary level, but at least we have them and we're starting somewhere. Okay. And then we have a lot of community partners. Some be fast. That was my last one. Perfect.
Dr. Sanford, you just want to stop the share or you can hand that over to me. That works as well. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, that was fast, but I had a lot, so I didn't want to think about your time.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of information. Let's see, so I'm gonna open it up to questions. You can direct them to Teresa for JP2 or Dr. Standish for North Thurston. And
I'd like to ask my first question of Miss Allen from John Paul II. What is the demographic breakdown or profile of your 102 students?
So I have, it's about 70% white and 30% mostly Asian. I've got 2% Black American.
2% Black, okay,
And that's varied over time as we've changed. We've had
certainly.
different years, but yeah, that's where we're at this year.
So you mentioned the kind of scholarship resource that the school has available. How are those scholarship opportunities made known to the community that might be interested in a Catholic school education?
Well, we have a variety of ways that we're advertising or marketing, and we always on all of our flyers detail the different ways that you can apply for financial aid. Everyone has to go through the exact same process. There's an online application. And it's need-based specifically, that we take out names and never identifiers and just look need-based and go through what we have available. So does that answer what you? Okay.
So you've it's based on need and you just pick out, from the pile of those in need. Are there any specific outreach efforts to further diversify beyond, say, the 2 Blacks that you have or the whatever, a deliberate and intentional effort as your school continues to grow with the community growing, so in its diversity?
So we, most of our marketing that we have direct access to, that we can go in and actually talk to, is at the Catholic churches or Catholic parishes. And so we're doing that. And you should know within the Catholic Church that Spanish is also one of the highest populations. And we have not many this year, actually, Hispanic students. There's probably a couple that were in the mixed category that are partially, but in the past I've been 30%. So it kind of depends upon what's coming through the parishes. That's probably our most direct access. We've started doing more, a lot more online marketing of here's how to apply, here's the process. I'm open to suggestions on how to approach different groups that would find a Catholic education as something that they're interested in. I'd be happy to find any way to connect. We're constantly reaching out. We've changed our marketing strategies over the last 2 years, partially because of COVID and partially just to really try and make sure that we're known. Growing a school from scratch is a lot of work, and it's taken us a while to be even known or recognized within the community. I still have people who say, what school are you from?
Right.
13 years later, so I'm still working on it.
Thank you.
Yes.
What is your criteria and eligibility? Like, do they have to be a Catholic student or somebody that's just interested in the Catholic faith that can go to the school?
No, we do teach Catholic curriculum, but we are open to all faiths. One of our standards, though, is to help students have a relationship with God. So that's really, anyone who wants to help further their relationship with God would be welcome.
And then what about individuals with disabilities? Do you have that at your school as well?
So I have some students on individualized plans. It's not quite the same as a public school plan, but accommodations are made for a variety of students. We, although being very small, don't have the staff to have to support some students. So we have to, as part of the application process, we gather academic information, including, what needs they may have. So I have had, many students with ADHD and, a variety of those disorders, executive function disorder, and lots of people on the Asperger's scale. And there's, as long as it's an accommodation that we, with our very small staff, can accommodate, being small helps because we can target and have a lot more individual time, then we will accept and work with those students. But there have been a few times where I've had to say, I can't accommodate this. I don't have a way to do it. So, because I don't want to set anyone up for failure either.
And then for both of you, men versus women as far as teachers, and African-American men versus women as well. I know that could also be a barrier when it comes to kind of seeing themselves in their instructors. And how do you guys maybe plan in the future to overcome that?
I just would say that. Well, yes, that's a huge barrier in our district, especially African-American men. I am the only African-American administrator in the district, only one in the whole district of this size. So that's a huge barrier. And what we've done is I partnered with ESD 113, that's Educational Services right down here in Tumwater, who oversees this whole region of school districts. And we went after this huge grant specifically on hiring and recruiting BIPOC people of color, employees in the school district in this region, because a lot of us are a little bit rural. ESD 113 service rural school district, small school district, who most definitely have no BIPOC employees. So we're working, this is our first year of the grant. It's a 3-year grant that we're working on with a strategic plan on how to attract, target, and retain them. And we've had several people of color in the North Thurston School District, but for various reasons, not some, it's a lot of different reasons why they don't stay here with us. And definitely for smaller districts, it's even worse. So if we move like her smaller district, salary being one of them.
Yeah. Goodness.
I have a question for you, Dr. Sandra, several really. One of the reasons we've asked our school people to come and share with us here at the Equity Commission is that we know there was a terrific amount of student unrest this last spring, particularly in North Thurston District and specifically in River Ridge High School. And your presentation is very impressive. And I say that from the point of view of having served on the school board 20 years ago for 20 years. So things that, you know, absolutely did not exist, being talked about, but didn't exist. So in the context of the kinds of things you described as what's going on in the district, been happening 2 or 3 years, how then did the unrest that erupted last spring that really concerned the community, especially the Black, the African-American community, and what became of the list of demands that those students made of the school, given this kind of program
Yes.
that you're presenting and explaining? How?
Yes.
They don't seem to mesh here in my
Yes.
thinking.
Well, one of the problems with that with last year was a lot of the things that was occurring that the students had issues with was they didn't know, and adults did not know all the facts. For example, they was saying that, and I'm a parent of River Ridge. 2 kids have graduated River School, and I have a 9th grader there right now. So I'm a full River Ridge supporter, 100%, and they Black. So I'm a Black person that was out there with the kids last year. I was out there with them every day at the protest too, because I believe in what they were saying. All across America, we have racial issues in our school. What happens in the education system is, for example, if a kid called me the N-word and I tell the principal, do they deal with it? Yes, they'll address it. The problem is the discipline might not be what I want. So I assume nothing happened because I see the kid back in my classroom. When it's various levels, especially today, the N-word, oh my God, it's been used so many different ways by us, people of color ourselves in there. And we don't suspend another kid for using that word. So we really educate them, or they might get lunch attentions, various things that they get. But what happened with the students was saying, y'all are doing nothing. So of course, when that happens multiple times, you get upset because you're assuming nothing happened because they don't know what the discipline was. Same thing, they call it a rape culture, that there was some things like sexual assault that was happening. Some of the stuff even happened off campus. And because, again, we definitely cannot tell you what's happening in those cases because those become legal cases. The police was involved in it, but when they don't see actions in whatever manner, they believe that nothing was happening. And with these things happening for years, it just, people don't give us any credit for this stuff. Again, most of this stuff is just probably the first time hearing, Dr. Jackson, right? That you hear about the stuff that we've been doing in the district. Because you don't get that, you only get the bad stuff. They're gonna come to this board and share with the negative 1 or 2, 3 cases out of 1,500 students in the building, and we have 1 or 3 cases, but those 1 or 3 cases, what get the limelight. And again, we have addressed every issue. Those demands, I was at the table, I wrote those demands with the kids and the answer. Every one of their demands we met, and we're continuing to follow through with it. I meet every month with the Black Student Union at River Ridge to follow up. What can we do different? What's going on? What's happening? I have just got a message right now from the teacher saying, hey, can we get a meeting going for March? Now, put me on the calendar for March. Because again, I want to be consistent with what we said we were going to do. So we are still working through those issues there. They've done a lot of healing and restorative work. That's why I said they're ahead of some of the other schools because we did a lot of restorative work. We're just building that culture back as a family, as a culture. So they do a lot of assemblies and what we call advisory lessons around social emotional learning, around racism. Black History Month, we did Black Lives Matter at School Week, where they put on different performances and activities and things just to promote the Black culture there in the building. So those are some of the things that we're doing now.
As recently as last week before last, a group showed up here at the city council meeting, repeating some of the same kinds of concerns, you know, when you watch the YouTube, you know, students laying on the floor, parents talking about what's happening to their kids. And so it concerns us as an equity commission because we've talked about the fact that we're working very hard to try and help the city of Lacey be as equitable, as inclusive and all as it can possibly be. But if we're seeing and hearing instances where certain groups of students don't feel as though their schools are equitable and inclusive, then we can't have a community one way and our schools another, because the saying of so goes the schools as go the community.
Exactly.
And so there seems to be, at least visibly, some kind of disconnect going on.
Yes. Yes.
that with all these activities and all this kind of effort, why then here in 2023, the city is now being confronted, saying, what can you do to help us with these issues our kids are having in the schools? Well, the city, you know, is responsible for the education of the kids in its community. But the schools can't divorce themselves from the community and the community from the schools. So that in a large sense, I know from my point of view, and I appreciate your kind comment about me and the community, but I've been speaking all over this community, especially this month of February. Not a soul from North Thurston has invited me in to speak to a single class, you know, with a book written.
Yeah.
I'm right here, as available as I can make myself. So I filter my things through that kind of lens. You know, don't have to fly me in from somewhere else or put me up overnight. No, just 5 minutes down the street. So I can relate it back to just that kind of thing. And so when I see a YouTube and I see what parents are still complaining about and students are still complaining about, I'm just concerned. And I'll say this, then I'll let my colleague here talk and whoever else is online. So much is going on in this country right now with pushback and book banning and anti-ethnic studies. And so how is this community dealing with, and this local school board dealing with that kind of attitude? We can't be immune from it. We can't be immune from it. And I'm really concerned about that aspect of it. So all these wonderful efforts that you're talking about and resources going to it, it appears that all it takes is 2 or 3 people to maybe show up at a school board meeting to want to halt this and halt that. And, you know, how is this school district gearing up to not become party to this book banning, backward moving thing that's going on around this country, and it's catching on like wildfire?
Yes.
I'm sorry I threw so much at you, but
I appreciate it. I'm 100% with you. So just go back a little bit. So the video and the people that came here last week and to the week before last, whatever, again, as I stated, whenever there's an incident, because I am a parent there, and I'm hot and mad when things go on with my kids. I'm ready to go up in there and go off, even as a district employee, because things happen. And those are the only things that's going to come to your face is the negative. They don't show all the good that we're doing what we're doing all year. And then you only get one side of the story too when they come here. They didn't tell you, as you just saw in the news, if you didn't, excuse me, luckily it didn't make the news. But at River Ridge High School, in December, we had a bunch of kids in the bathroom, and there was marijuana being sold in the bathroom, and there was a gun on the campus in the bathroom. So now we are definitely heightened for the safety of all of our kids. So again, that incident that happened a few weeks ago, we had a bunch of kids in the bathroom again, and marijuana was in there. One of those students that parents kind of hear fussing and big loud had the marijuana on them, but they ain't gonna tell you that we are trying to we keep all our kids safe. So we had to go in there and search kids to make sure of our kids' safety. And so, was that uncomfortable? Yes. As an African-American male, I definitely don't want to be, and we didn't search no one's personal body, they just searched their bags. But I don't want to be stopped and searched by anyone. So I know that's uncomfortable. It violates my privacy even to go through my bag. But for the safety of the other 1,500 kids in here, we had to do that. And everybody went home. Nobody got suspended except the one kid that had the marijuana and stuff. But they come in and say, oh, they searched us. They did all this and that. But they didn't tell you we had a gun in the bathroom just a few weeks ago. So we have to do that and be extra heightened alerts. And that's why, and then we have parents that came here to another meeting that don't even go to the River Ridge anymore. Most of those kids are not at River Ridge anymore, but they're complaining about what used to happen. They'll tell you what we're doing right now, all the efforts to fix it. Unfortunately, we keep getting a negative in the community. That's why I came out, to show you all the good that we are doing. Can we start getting this narrative out into the community? I'm at the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, everywhere I go, I'm putting this narrative out there. Again, because I am a River Ridge parent, 2 graduates and 1 there right now, and another one going there next year. So I'm 100% on board with equity and make sure all our kids are fair and being treated with that way. You had a second part of that question
Well,
too.
let me just comment on that. That's why we wanted to establish this dialogue and this communication, because we know there's another side of every story. And when we are confronted or questions raised to us, either as a commission, as a whole, or as individuals, we need information to be
Yes, ma'am.
able to help share what's going on. Have you done this? Or have you done that? Have you? But if we don't know, we can't respond. If the city council people and the mayor don't know, they can't respond when people show up at their meetings, with an agenda. So this is an effort to partner, to dialogue, because we're all in this community together.
Exactly.
Be us at John Paul, North Thurston North Thurston School District. We're in this community together.
Yes.
And so as we're talking about these things, the more information we know, the more dialogue we can have, the more partnering we can come about, the better we can all be as far as trying to make the entire community, including our schools, a livable, enjoyable, inclusive place. Because people, and I'm surprised when I run into people that don't realize how diverse this community has
Yes.
become. And to realize that the North Thurston schools are now a minority school district. And they say, what do you mean by that? I mean, there are more kids of color than there are white kids. And so I don't want to prolong the conversation because we do have some
I
more
want to ask
agenda
you a
to
second
get
part.
to.
You asked about a school board. I think the second part of your
Yes,
question.
I'm concerned
Yes.
about what I'm seeing nationwide
Yes.
with school boards being attacked, with school boards being slammed, with policies being reversed, with books being removed from shelves, with teachers being intimidated for trying to teach ethnic studies, and wokeness is a bad word now.
Yes.
But a community like Lacey can't be immune from those kinds of things, because we know we have certain points of view in this community that fits those profiles.
Exactly. So our school board passed the equity resolution a few years back. And a part of our equity resolution, we made a commitment to teaching ethnic studies in our district, and a more ethnic and multicultural classes in the district. And they have had a lot of backlash from that. Even we made a commitment to do Black Lives Matters at School Week. And every year we get a lot of backlash, people calling us mad about why y'all teaching political group and all this stuff in schools, and our board have stood with us. Our board and two of our board members came here and met with the city council a few weeks ago as well to address some of those concerns that was brought to the council and telling them where we're standing at on those issues. So I can speak for the board and tell them they are 100%, we're not banning any books, we're promoting and encouraging more diversity books. We are even trying to get the African American AP course that's been banned in Florida. We want it in our district.
I applaud that too, for the record.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Good.
Dr. Sanders?
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Sauer and then Stolber.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, I have a question to Dr. Sanifer, because I appreciate the fact that you have a dual language and that your emphasis on acknowledging there's a different language need, and the mention of a lot of students that English as a second language, there's a lot of LEP, limited English proficiency. So in that, I got couple questions. First, I heard you mention, obviously the Spanish is most spoken language, and that is your 50% goal, that students be able to speak another language in Spanish. But you also mentioned like French and German, and I haven't heard anything about Asian language. When there's a population pretty high, I believe that even German or French, there may be more need for Asian language, but I haven't heard that from you. And I'm wondering if you have any plans to expand to and include those language. And especially, with pandemic, we have experienced a lot of, I don't know, hatred or some sort of a bias toward Asians in general. My daughter, who went to college locally here, even the professors really didn't know much about Asian history, and that she was kind of like, I don't know how to put it, but there was some difficulty. So I'd like to know if you have any plans to be totally inclusive and promoting or, adopting more of other languages overall. And then also, if the kids can speak English, what about their parents? So how do you communicate with their parents, reaching out, letting them know of, the updates or what they need to know? How do you handle that issue? Thank you.
Thank you. So the first part of your question, Asian languages, I just thought a few examples. So we will be, one of the problems that we run into with languages, period, is trying to find enough certificated teachers to teach that language. So that is something we're still evaluating and just seeing. It really is going based on what staff we have. If we have an Asian person that speaks Korean or Japanese, then we would hire that employee. It's really gonna be based off the language that those people that we can hire to speak. So it's not really against any languages. It's just trying to find enough people that are qualified to teach that language. The second part of your question, you asked about those parents. So currently we have what's considered a language line. So right now, as I said, we have about 150 different languages spoken in our school district. So when we have those families come into our building to register their kid or to talk about an issue, we call what's called a language line. And it has a variety of languages, even though I don't speak Korean, but the person on the phone does, and that person will do the interpreting for us, for that family. Currently on our district website, there's a translation button on the site where you can translate it to various different, I don't know exactly how many languages, because I have never used it, but it's a lot of different languages that you can transfer the whole district website to those various languages there as well. And I know most of the time we send our flyers and things home but predominantly Spanish, but we will do various other languages when we know that that family is in need of that.
Okay, so I don't know if this can be a suggestion or not, but I know that I have been a Korean language teacher the weekend during the school years for many, many years. And mostly those are Korean kids from Korean family. And they are just like American, Asian American. They haven't been to Korea, if they have, just for visiting. So they're just like any other kids. So, so perhaps there's a way to, collaborate with someone like me. I know there's a Chinese school are very active locally also. So maybe that is something that school can look into, because I don't have a teacher certificate and I don't plan to be a teacher, but I am donating my time to do that. Again, we have 8 different Korean classes that are provided locally, and the Chinese school are very active as well. So that's something for you to perhaps think about. And translation, utilizing the Google Translate or even the language line, there's a limitation, obviously, right? So just wanted to bring that out. I mean, that's the best that we can so far, I guess, right now. But if there's the accuracy is pretty questionable at times.
Yes, thank you for those suggestions.
Commissioner Stolberg, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I have 2 just hopefully quick questions. The data on the school district, like the graduation rates and this many % of kids passed or met this math standard, do you know the OSPI report card stats? Is any of that stratified by race or gender or anything? Do you know?
Yes, it can be broke down to on the OSPI website. You can go there and break it down by race, gender, class, teacher, student race. All that information is on the OSPI website. Okay,
and then do you know does anybody look at that data? Is there anything done with it? Because, I'm thinking if you can see that, you would want, and I haven't looked at it, so I don't know what it looks like, but just thinking about trying to identify barriers, like how do you go about identifying what barriers might be for certain groups that have a higher achievement gap?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. We're constantly looking at data, not just the OSPI data, but our continuous data that we use on a day-to-day basis in the school building to help drive how we do our instruction, especially try to lower that achievement gap. We're looking at right now the factors of COVID and what COVID did to our students and how far back that we still, like, for example, our language. We have a test called the STAMP, STAMP. It's the language proficiency exam that students can pass and they earn a seal. That means they're proficient in that language. Well, we've had the lowest number of students pass it last year, and it was due to COVID. Because those 2 years, they were in the 9th and 10th grade is when they normally take that exam. They were at home, so they didn't take that exam. So our numbers are now, we're trying to rebuild those students being proficient in that language. So we looked at that data to determine what extra work we need to do now to prepare these students to pass those exams.
Mhm. Does anyone reach out to the students individually? Like if you just, I'm just going to make something up. If you saw like a much higher percentage of Black students are not meeting the math standard, does anybody like individually reach out to see what's going on?
I can't.
Or is that just like teacher by teacher? Because like some teachers, like my kids are in the North Thurston School District too. And I've had some teachers that have been great. And then I've had some teachers who like, I've shown up to a school conference and they haven't even looked at their test scores. I've been like, I'm worried about this reading score. And they're like, what? Like, so, you know, I'm just curious if there's any standardized way of doing that, or if it's all just left up to the teachers individually.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no standardized way of doing it. That is the responsibility of the classroom teacher as well as our building counseling staff, especially at the high school level. When those students are in jeopardy of not graduating, they are called down individually and created individual pathways to graduation. So there are individual plans at times. We don't necessarily do it by lower demographics. Oh, we see all the Black kids are failing algebra, so let's call all the Black kids in. No, we do it on an individual basis according to their academic needs.
I had a couple quick questions. One was about the restorative center. I wasn't clear about who is there giving the support. I understand some of it is peer-led or peer-to-peer, but that question. And the other question is your support for LGBTQ plus students. Went to the cafe there, and many of them said that the harassment in their high schools was and middle schools was very difficult, and not sure where they were getting their support from other than Pisa Clatch and a few teachers. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. At that cafe, we were able to identify some issues and things around that harassment that, again, we weren't aware of until the cafe. So your first question about the restorative center. So at each of the high school, we have 2 restorative staffing members, adult staff members that's been trained, that's going to work in there full time all day long, and they are also the coaches to the students. The power of peer mediation is amazing. It's powerful. Research have studied and shown that. So that's who was managing that center all day long. Every day, 2 full-time staff members, along with the students coming in on various shifts to do that work. We are continuing to, one of the things that we found out with the LGBTQIA community is a lot of us has been ignorant to it. And not that ignorance is a bad thing, we just didn't know what we didn't know. So as we become more educated, now we're able to build more tools and put things in place to support that community. Primary is doing it as early as possible. Many years ago, you would never hear us talk about any LGBTQIA at the elementary level. Now, one of our One School, One Books addresses those issues at the elementary level as well. And talking about how to, these are still individuals just like you and I are, and teach them to love, use empathy and peace and justice and identity, all those social justice standards. As early, we start doing it at the early ages. And then we also have more discipline and education at the high school and the middle school level, just be more education, not only to the students, but to many of our staff members that we're still learning about this community.
Yeah, because you have a lot of LGBTQ parents as well that are bringing kids. Yeah. All right. Any last questions? Should we wrap this up? Yes.
Vice Chair Clay, I had a quick question. I know Dr. Sandiford, as part of the conversation that you just had, you were talking about, getting information out on, what North Thurston Public Schools is currently and actively working on. For maybe somebody who is watching, or, somebody might be curious in the community, can you provide some information on, where is a good place to get more
Yes.
information? on that?
Yes, so if you would go to our the North Thurston Public School District, under departments as equity. And on our equity page, it highlights all the great things that we're doing consistently, even from the community cafes last year, what we call as a harvest. All the information that we gathered, it's on the website. So it's public knowledge. Everything that people told us, good, bad, and the ugly, is out there. And that's how we've been able to make changes based off information that we got from the families. So on that website, we try to keep it up to date with the various things that's going on throughout the district around equity work. Because we don't get we just so, inundated in the work, we don't always get to go to all the different community meetings telling until y'all call us. We don't be thinking about it, just doing the work.
Thank you.
One last comment I'd like to make, Commissioner Clay, before we leave this item. Talking about the community cafes, and I did attend the one for the African American community. I don't know if all the cafes were structured the same way, but I left that cafe feeling as though it was overly prescriptive from the point of view of it allowing a forum to extract the kind of information and input you were looking for. And just as I moved from table to table with different groups, there was a lot of table to table conversation going on that never made it on those pieces of paper up there on that wall that you're summarizing. And I heard a lot of concern. I was just there as a community member. My kids are grown and gone, but as a community member, and a lot of concern raised around those various tables that I don't know how much of that made it on your pieces of paper for your summary, but there still is a lot of concern in the African American community about disproportionality in discipline, about the lack of advocacy for kids when they're called into the office or whatever with another adult. And I just listened. My purpose for being there was to listen. And then to hear the summary, I almost left the feeling as though that had been one big kumbaya night. But I didn't hear kumbaya around those tables as I moved around that room. So just for your information, those were my parting feelings about it.
Yes.
But I appreciated the effort to have it. I'm just concerned about what the district took away from those, where I heard so much comment around the tables that just never surfaced in the bigger forum. And I don't know how that went for multiracial, LGBTQ, and the other cafes that you had, but I know for that one, it was a disconnect between table conversation and what was summarized as the things that were heard. And I did the gallery walk and read every sheet, trying to make sure. So that's just feedback from just one person who was at that cafe.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's a long conversation, and it's a conversation that'll never be over. So we know who our partners are. We want to look to each other. We want to keep telling each other what we see, and really, really appreciate both of you coming.
Thank you.
One more. I wonder if Dr. Sandiford, if we can, is there a link to your slideshow?
She has it.
So
Yeah,
Vice Chair,
okay, good.
I'll make sure to send it out in my follow-up email later this week with all of the additional information I'm sure I'll be sending out to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you all
Where
so
do
much
you
for
find
coming.
your cafe for tomorrow?
It's at the Lacey Community Center at 5:30.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Our good friend Jen.
Good evening.
So going over the comprehensive plan again, the first draft. Parks, Culture, and Recreation.
Good evening. Thank you, commissioners. It's really nice to see you again. and be back. I told you I'd be back and I am, and I'll be back again. So, but tonight, yes, reviewing the Lacey Parks Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. We do have a draft one to share with you. I apologize for all the markups. And we're hoping the next time you see it, it's in our lovely new format with lots of new pictures and everything. So, but tonight I'm looking for recommendations from the Commission on Equity. You last saw this at your October 24th meeting, and that's where we reviewed the vision and strategic goals. So we're kind of breaking it up into bits here. As you know, this is a comp plan that gets updated every 6 years, and recognizing that the Commission and the city are working on the diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI strategic plan. We just want to make sure that we integrate all the right pieces into this plan, since they complement and support each other. So looking for overall input that you have, but I do have focus on 3 areas. The executive summary, the policies and objectives that are related to the strategic goals, and then the Lacey Parks level of service maps. And also some of the demographic mapping, just kind of wanting to get some feedback from you all. And then basically what will happen is I'll take your recommendations. I'll come back hopefully in April. I'll need to work with Shannon on that. And then if the commission feels like comfortable enough to recommend that to onto the city council at that point, that's great. We also have May as a potential, could bring it back if we need to. The ultimate goal is to get it to the planning commission in June and then on to the city council in August. So that's kind of an overview. So we'll just jump right in to and I do have to apologize. I said page 8 in the packet. Specific question I have for you is actually on page 11, the way it worked out when we put together the packet. So, so here we go through. Just sorry if I make you dizzy, but let me know if you want me to stop on a particular page that wasn't planning to stop.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to go straight to page 11. And my first question for you is, this is part of the, oh, hold on one second. Just realized. Oh, I take that back. So I have questions for you on page 9 and 11. So the first one, just under, I've got listed out here, how essential parks, culture, recreation are to people, to the community, promoting health and wellness. There's all these different reasons. Under uniting people and strengthening communities, I'm looking for feedback just in this section, if you feel this is reflective of your interests. Countering social isolation by connecting people with nature and each other, fostering positive social interactions and increasing social capital within historically marginalized communities. And then just a statement here that U.S. public strongly supports Parks, Culture, and Recreation's mission and funding. So I don't know if you had any feedback on this section here.
Is that new? Is that section new?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is where, the benefit of coming back is
Right.
if you need a little more time to reflect on this, you have that time.
Yeah, I
It's
was
a big
trying to-
project.
Trying to focus on those things you highlighted that would draw my attention.
Okay.
And I took the highlighted things as new stuff.
Oh, the tracked changes. Everything that you see that's tracked is new.
Mm.
And I also
So
did.
what is social capital? Can you kind of define what that means?
Fostering positive social interactions and increasing social capital.
Social capital. I don't see that in that statement.
Oh,
Oh,
right
right
here.
Second.
The second one under Unite People and Strength Community.
Under foster.
Yes, right here. Yep.
Oh, okay, I think I can kind of.
Yeah, and so this is,
So Commissioner Sauer, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, go for it.
Were you looking for like a definition of?
Yeah.
what capital is?
Yeah.
So it's a great question. And so it's this idea of building relationships and really enhancing and augmenting the connections between different peoples and communities. And using that to continue other opportunities throughout the community.
Okay.
Jen, would
Thank
you
you, Shannon.
anything else you would add on that?
nope, I think that's a great description.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And feel free, we can come back to this too. But the other item was under, so that's in the executive summary. And then when we move on to the plan overview, I do have a couple of items here. The plan provides, essential strategic vision. It'll have a capital improvement program, et cetera. But then here, the second statement here, operating, I would like to put something in here about an equity lens or an equity framework. And so I was looking for advice on this particular section right here. As Lacey continues to address the needs for equity and social justice, the plan will include those policies and objectives the city can implement and approve upon to ensure equity, diversity, and inclusion in partnership with community members. This part here could be even just a snip from your DEI plan, strategic plan.
And so, commissioners, we're going to be talking about our presentation to the Lacey City Council here and going over our work plan. And one of the items actually identified in our work plan to look at later on this year is going to be a equity tool and an equity framework. So tying that in with the Parks, Culture and Recreation plan, that's something, that as we move forward, we'll certainly want to take into account when we're framing these tools that might be useful in the future. How can they be used in different types of projects, services, and initiatives for the city, whether it might be a parks or recreation application, or potentially, let's say public works or police or public safety. So just to give you all, I know we've gone through the work plan, but just want to bring that up so everybody is aware of that. One of the activities we have identified is to take a look at a equity framework.
I think the way you frame it as, not frame it, but operating from an equity framework is kind of a topical lead in to what you're talking about. I think that's adequate as we move through the rest of this plan, your plan, our plan, the city's plan, the whole thing. And somewhere along the way, maybe we can define equity framework, which will serve everybody's purpose.
Sure, and if you're not quite ready with the framework, maybe it's just lens. We use the word lens. It's,
I like framework.
I like the framework too, just a dash and then a definition of something for people who might not be as familiar with the word framework. What do we mean by an equity framework?
I like a lens better because framework seems to be setting some sort of a limitation. I don't know, maybe that's my imagination, or boundary that are like limit with limit. Because lens seems to be more inclusive and more, I don't know, exploring areas that we haven't been before.
And just the opposite for me, when I hear lens, I think of what we can see, what we can identify. But the framework goes further than that. It's policy, it's positions, it's behavior, it's culture, that whole framework that makes up the, including lens. But the framework, as we're talking about, a city entity, that whole framework, including, that's just how I'm looking at it.
Okay, well, thanks for your input.
And commissioners, like I mentioned, we'll circle back to this in much greater detail,
I'm
so
sure.
we can continue with that conversation moving forward.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the largest chunk probably of our conversation is the policies and objectives. So we have gone over the strategic goals, and then, so those are, what we're trying to get to. And the policies and objectives is how we're gonna get there. So some of the policies have objectives as it currently sits, and some of them don't. So I don't think they all necessarily have to have them, but they're there. There's space for them if we need them. Sorry, making you dizzy just for a moment here. Again, if there's a particular page you want me to stop on, just let me know. Okay. So what's great is we restate the strategic goals here, so we can follow along with which strategic goal we're looking at. And in strategic goal 1, it's develop a high quality, well, you all can read it, I won't read it, but I do know that the commission has already weighed in on the wording for the strategic goal. And so then what are those policies and the objectives underneath the policies to get us there? So we have pursuing traditional and non-traditional programs and amenities. This one has a lot of objectives. I'm gonna call out the ones you might be interested in. Not that you're not interested in all of them. Traditional and non-traditional programs. So if there's anything there, we talked
Well,
about.
one that's flashing by real fast, and I think we had a little discussion on it, was this, if you go back up just a little bit more, the one on community gardens or something. Yeah, right there, E.
Oh,
Yeah. Grow and promote community garden opportunities. Yeah, that's something that we mentioned briefly, but from a cultural perspective, there are groups that would be interested. There, people becoming more and more concerned about the quality of the food they eat, organically grown or whatever, but don't have the space to garden per se in apartments or whatever. So that becomes one of those non-traditional activities that you've identified as an objective, which reflects some input we've given you in previous discussions.
great. And then we have, hiring, training, supporting. So this one speaks to our staff. And then maintaining parks, culture and recreation facilities at a higher standard of care, creating sound planning structures and accountability for all of our business areas. We talk about athletic fields and articulating in a better way the need for athletic fields. And this one here, are these the last one? No, they're not the last ones, but these two I thought you might be interested in. So continue free and low cost events that have community and regional draw that bring people together. So we show, some of our events.
Don't you guys have parades and stuff too? Is that you guys, or is that somebody else that does like the Christmas tree lighting and parades and all of that?
Yeah, we do the holiday lighting and lighted parade. Yep,
Oh, okay,
I should add that one in there.
yeah.
And then we have remove access barriers by providing free public parks and scholarships for programs. And that one, that's a new one that we added in there. And I want to add, just because something wasn't in there before, it doesn't mean that we haven't been doing it. It's just making our comprehensive plan more descriptive and robust as to what, matching it up with what we're doing. So we do provide free public parks, and we have provided scholarships. An objective actually under this. So next month, our executive assistant, Sarah Smith, is going to be coming to you to talk about our updated scholarship policy. And we're trying to make it more accessible to people. So that could be an objective under that one, is ensuring the scholarship program is reaching the people that need it. I'll add that one. Providing parks in close proximity to all residents. Our current level of service for parks and trails is that we would like every person to be within a half-mile travel shed. And I've got some maps to show you about that. And so we've listed here using our GIS system to create more accurate access. We talked about this last time, and I'll show you that when we get to the maps section, just more accurately showing what that 0.5-mile travel shed is.
Jen, I got a question for you on policy 8, and maybe it's answered in additional policies. So it says provide parks in close proximity to all residents. We know too that having parks in proximity to where people work is also incredibly important. So can you speak a little bit to that in the park system, and has there been any consideration of that in a level of service?
I don't know if it is in there, to be honest. That'd be a good addition. So maybe change that to provide parks in close proximity to residents and places of business in Lacey and the UGA.
I think, and more too, planning, residential areas, and there are a lot of business areas as well, but I just, recognizing the importance of, parks in health, and, where you work is where you are most of the time. So just something to ponder and consider.
Yeah, that's a great addition. Also part of this is updating the level of service standards and work toward meeting and maintaining the levels, identifying the need for additional facilities. Want to use a frequent public transit map. So this is something new to evaluate public access to parks and determine how to improve access. This one has to do with RCO and maintaining our eligibility for grants.
Let's see, with the public transportation, are you guys working? With
So I'll get to that right here.
Okay.
We've worked, and good question, we've worked with intercity transit a little bit. We need to do it more. And so what this policy kind of indicates is, as an objective, we're gonna map it, which is something, I mean, we kind of know where the bus routes are and where the parks are, but this is a great new addition to our comprehensive plan to actually show it.
Yeah.
And show, what the distances are.
Yeah, because as soon as you said where we work, if somebody works over in the industrial area over there, opposite of Hawks Prairie, and you've got Ptolemy State Park over there, but I don't really think that there is a bus that goes that far down. I think it stops just by Providence or just inside of Meridian at the traffic circle, but not necessarily in the industrial area. But I don't know what that intercity map looks like.
Well, I'll show you what we've started with here. But I do think this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then, this is, requiring developers to dedicate land for future parks, open space and recreation facilities. as they're, installing new development into Lacey. So the frequent public transit map, so what we did is we defined an area we defined the frequent transit as transit every 30 minutes. Because there were some bus stops that were, every hour. But we didn't think that that would be considered frequent. I am open to suggestions on this. This is what made sense to the team that's updating the plan, made up of different people from different departments. The travel sheds that we indicate here are 0.25 mile or a 5-minute travel from the transit. So the first thing we'll do is put the park names on here. So we'll make sure that that happens. But this shows you, I think you were talking about the Northeast Lacey area.
Yeah.
So these are these weird shapes here. This is that 0.25 mile around the transit. So it's kind of a odd shape. Because some areas can't actually travel through them because there's a body of water or private property or something. So yeah, you can kind of just see at a glance that there's better transit to some parks than others. The parks are indicated in green, the city parks.
And Commissioner Hart, just to circle back to your comment before about Tolney State Park, that's to the north. And obviously with this walk shed set at the 0.25 5-minute travel, not included within that walk shed. But just also want to recognize that that is a state park and not a City of Lacey park, but a great amenity for the community.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. We're gonna talk later about what we're doing with mapping all parks in Lacey, just to tell the full story of what amenities there are. So we will be on one of the maps that will show Tolney and indicate that it's a state park. So again, we can use this as a tool as we move forward. I mean, we're obviously not going to be able to accomplish all the objectives before this plan is updated. There's a lot of work involved with it, but it's a great start to the conversation of, what does access look like for people who need.
So the dark green is the parks, and then what about the darker gray area?
So the city limit is indicated with this lighter color. And then the urban growth area is this darker color. And so anything gray would be outside the city limit or the UGA. So it'll either be county or Olympia. So if you have comments or suggestions, just be sure to let me know on that. And then we talk about opportunities for community members to experience nature and solitude. Ensure a strategic planning process is in place to reflect site suitability and development. And this is where we talk about our master planning upon acquisition of new park property, making sure we get public input, etc. So that was all strategic goal number 1, which is a very broad, yes. So this one is to prioritize Lacey Park's projects and facilities, identify current and future funding sources, leveraging investments and partnerships, and maintaining Lacey's eligibility for grant funding. Certainly open to suggestions on this. It wasn't one that I was going to focus on for this commission. Although be sure to look it over because we do talk about partnerships, together we can do more for the community. We talk about some of our main partners. Strategic goal 3 is regarding our trail system. Interconnect park, school, neighborhoods, open spaces, other trails and important public facilities. So we talk about high quality system of multi-purpose trails and corridors, providing a trail system that promotes physical activity and health conscious community. strategic goal 4, we talk about heritage of Lacey and the South Sound region. This is one that the Historical Commission is going to be doing quite a bit of work on.
Can I go back to the trails? One,
Yes.
I wonder if there's anything that you've been thinking about safety on trails, and I'm thinking about phone stations or, you know, something periodically on some of those longer trails.
And
Wonder if
light,
y'all and
lighting.
lights. Mhm.
and then sidewalks too, not necessarily on trails, but we do not have enough sidewalks. We have bike lanes. I just don't think that we have enough sidewalks in Lacey. The area that I live in, Hawks Prairie, is unincorporated, of course, but I see so many kids walking in the squally on the side of the road, on the side that does not have sidewalks. So it's not terribly safe, and they're not walking against traffic. They're walking with traffic, which isn't safe either. So what do you have any plans on providing additional sidewalks everywhere alongside the bike walk?
So when the public works folks come.
Yeah,
have this
still part-
conversation
yeah.
with them.
I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah. Certainly, next time we meet with Public Works, we'll want to discuss that a little bit more, but also to recognize that there's the city, and then there is the urban growth area as well. And, currently, for sidewalks in the urban growth area, that would be something that Thurston County would be leading. But it's always good to check in on, what is our sidewalk program? And we do have one. So we can certainly follow up with Public Works and get you some more information on what that looks like. We also have a sidewalk repair program as well. So it's not just about, adding new facilities, but going back and making sure that the facilities that we have, meet ADA standards and are adequate for community members to use and access.
Yeah, and related to this, I was in the regional trails plan update meeting on Friday. The TRPC, Thurston Regional Planning Council, is updating. I think it's been 15 years since that plan was updated. So they had all the jurisdictions and trail users and stakeholders they've had a series of, meetings to update that plan. So some of these same themes were mentioned. So thank you for the input. So we talk a lot about, the historic preservation and offering programs that amplify and educate on heritage and culture. And we have a new Museum and Cultural Center project that's mentioned several times in the plan. That's just a note to us to add the renderings there. So this is the one I was looking for input from the Commission on Equity, utilizing sustainable systems and practices that ensure the environmental, economic, social, and cultural needs and desires of future generations will not be compromised. And so this is where we have the policy to incorporate all applicable DEI strategic components, strategic plan components into this plan. That can be, the location of this can be moved, it can be reworded, however you all feel it would best fit in here. And then I was just looking for some help with the objectives for that.
Let me toss in a thought. We've been talking about DEI for the last few years now. Some new language that was entered into our vocabulary. Now it's also attaching the word belonging, DEIB. So as this plan is under development and DEI is showing up in a lot of places, you might just want to check on some of the belonging kind of narrative and thinking that's out there. It's one thing to be included, it's another thing to feel as though you belong. I just tossed that out. That's another whole piece of work for you. But if we're going to adopt the plan and it's going to hang around 3 or 4 years, we might as well make it as up to date as we can, given where society and conversation is now moving, but DEI now B, belonging has been added.
Good point.
But whatever that's
About
worth.
2 months ago.
Might expand your headache, but belonging is now part of that. And as we're talking about parks, recreation, belonging. So,
Well, Commissioner Jackson, I'm glad you brought that up because as everybody here knows, we are working on that plan and we are in a draft stage right now. So certainly think that that is something we can circle back to and incorporate into the draft moving forward and have additional conversations on that.
and it also would have an implication for our list of definitions. I don't think it's made that statewide list of definitions. So if someone wants to say, what do you mean by belonging? A lot of literature out there now, books being written on it. So I'll bring it up now other than later on and say, well, why didn't she mention that back then when we were talking about DEI? So, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done with it for now.
they're making
Belonging,
sure that-
DEIB.
Yeah, there's definitely diversity and equity, inclusion, but if I don't feel like I belong in that space, then we have a whole nother area to focus on.
And it might be another alphabet next month or next year, but right now, belonging has found its way into this whole discussion.
Well, and maybe with the objectives, once this commission gets into the strategic plan a little bit more, the DEI and potentially B.
Yes.
We can insert some objectives into this section. So the second policy we have is to map demographic metrics deemed applicable to this plan and determine how to index them with socioeconomic and health metrics to develop information to better determine and reflect community needs. So there's a lot you can do with mapping. And so and like I mentioned before, we can't necessarily do everything right now, but we can start with a good map of where people live compared to the parks. And then we can start to then determine how to index those as we go. So I put in a couple of maps just to start the conversation. And one of the first things I noticed, and my apologies, the parks are not on this map. So that's one thing that we will definitely add. But this is and so this does say index, but this is a start to the conversation with you about different, how the commission would like to see race and ethnicity mapped onto Lacey. And so this is just an example of a way that it could be done, which is you can see the highly diverse areas and the lower diverse areas. So if it's closer to 100, it's more diverse, that section.
And Jen, I think it's important for anybody who just might be listening to this and not seeing this, that the diversity index takes the statistical rate of two people chosen randomly that meet each other will be of different ethnicities. So it's not just a straight demographics projection right there. It's taking statistical rates of taking two people randomly chosen being of different ethnicities.
Thank you.
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, think about it.
Let that absorb and make practical application of that.
Yeah, and so I guess in the future, what it would be used for is showing where the parks are and where the different demographics of Lacey live, and then just looking at the access bubbles, which I'll show you next, bubbles. They're travel sheds, we named them. And just making sure that there's equal access across the city, and any other indexing we may want to do in the future.
That 13.7, that's real low. Surrounding.
That's
everything.
Panorama.
Oh, retirement community.
I think Commissioner Clay might have something.
This is fascinating. But this is something similar or a piece of what we talk about working on that equity index map.
So Vice Chair Clay, it's certainly something that we're going to take a look at for the equity index, in addition to other types of metrics, you know, so for example, we'll certainly also have just a kind of demographic layer as well, where you can take a look at the breakdown of demographics based off of, you know, certain census sizes. But this is something that is a really interesting tool to add in addition to those types of data points.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if you want to give that some thought, and then here's one that looks at per capita income, and this is, again, this is just one way to see what the income is. Per capita average shows family, reflects family sizes and income levels. So it's, you know, it's income per person. So obviously if you have an income level, but there's more people in the family, the per capita is going to be reflected lower. So just, it takes into account family sizes versus, you know, the same income level, but there's two people or one person in the household.
I seem to remember something, I think, from the infrastructure that I was reading a list of projects and they had some kind of data connected to it, the city connected to it that included per capita income. Like, I'm not sure what they used it for, and I'm not, anyway, we saw that a little while ago.
Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, so
It was a list of projects, road projects, and each one had a connected income level to it.
yeah, Vice Chair Clay, that's certainly, you know, something again that, you know, we can follow up with Public Works for some more information, but a lot of tracking that they do is where their programs are in the community and who is being provided services you know, through those projects. And it's certainly, you know, helpful for understanding, you know, where we're doing work in the community, and also important for you know, grant potentials as well.
Here again, the parks will be added in, because that's what we want to evaluate parks and as they're compared to different income levels, and making sure that there's equitable access or equitable parks in all locations. And I mean, if there's something that the commission doesn't feel like it's necessary to map, I'm certainly open. I'm looking for seeking advice from this commission. If you want to give that one some thought. So policy would be explore and implement facilities or features that promote diverse cultures. Sorry about this mess here. And then we have hosting, so objectives under that is hosting events and educational programming that increase cross-cultural and cross-generational awareness and engagement. Continue to take actions that show Lacey as a welcoming community. This one is more about ecological features and natural resources. So definitely read through those, but I don't know that we need to spend time on those tonight. Again, preservation. Yeah, so that was the policies and objectives section. And then let's look at the level of service maps. I'm going to not make you dizzy. Oh, I guess I don't have the keyboard. I'll make
What
you
page
do
number do you
let's
type in there?
see.
We can
Oh, actually, yeah.
teamwork this
Oh,
if you want to
there we
go into,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
57.
57, we're going there.
Yeah, good call. All right, so we'll start actually a little bit higher. So we're looking at level service maps. This is a location of Lacey parks. And this will be more readable. This is very bad font. here. My apologies for that. But we just start with a map. We map everything out compared to the city boundary and the UGA. And then what we do is we add in, and these will have the park names too. This is that travel shed. So this is the 0.5 mile radius from the parks. And I don't know if you recall when I was here before, the last time we did this plan, we just did a circle around the middle of the park, and it was kind of as the crow flies. But what we know about access is that there are barriers. And so here we've mapped out those travel sheds. So it's real easy to see where the deficiencies are as far as Lacey Park's facilities are concerned. It's important to note that if something's not open at this time, we didn't show that there's access. So for example, this is the Great Cuyo Park and Palm Creek Headwaters properties, and there is only certain portions that are actually accessible and open. And I see a couple things that aren't incorrect on this map, so we'll make sure that those are corrected. But a good example is that, you know, we're working on Great Cuyo Park Phase 1A, which will provide access to this whole section here. So at that time, we can update the map. But I don't know if that that actually won't be done before the parks open in 2024. So, but yeah, you can see that the city is kind of missing facilities here. Right through here, it's interesting because this is such a large property. So if you look at our overall park acreage, we're really good when it comes to compared to the population, but it's kind of concentrated over here. And so if access is an issue, then that could be challenging for people. So we'll speak to that in this plan. The next thing we did is that,
Real
oh,
quick
yes,
question, or
yes.
maybe a point of clarification.
Sure.
So we have a trail that runs through the city, and is that being treated as a park for the purpose of the level of service mapping?
Yes, this is the Karen Fraser Woodland Trail. And yes, it overlaps. Oh, wait, let's see. Yeah, it overlaps with some other access travel sheds. But yes, that is the trail. We also have a trail up here, the William Ives Trail. So you can see that the access is mapped to that one as well. And you'll see the Chehalis Western Trail on the next map that shows facilities that are not operated by the city. This one's struck out, disregard that one. So this is where we're showing other parks. And so there's your Ptolemy State Park up there. There's more that we need to add on to here, so this is not complete. But we wanted to show a separate map that shows other facilities and parks and trails. And then we want to show the access to those as well. So for example, see the Chehalis Western? Goes all the way down, and then you'll see the main access points. There is a lot of access to the Chehalis Western, but it's through neighborhoods. We're trying to only call out like the main access areas and not necessarily have people take this and have it drive more traffic through their neighborhood. But so this is not complete because this one needs to be completed first. We need to fill in. We're going to fill in all the pocket parks and anything that's open space or green space in Lacey. So we'll get to see a good comprehensive view of what is available. So then we'll show the travel sheds, and then what we'd like to add to this note here is we want a combined map. So you see the Lacey story, you see all the other facilities, and then you see combined. Yeah. So those were the main areas that I wanted to talk about. Any questions or comments about the level of service maps?
You've done a lot of incorporating of comments that we've made in previous presentations, so we're getting there.
It's definitely a process. Well, again, like I said, I will be bringing this back and it'll look much nicer in April. And I'm sure Shannon and I will probably work on we will be working on some of this stuff in between, so.
I had one question about the cultural history and whatnot, and just encouraging the Parks Department to think about Native history and have it. I know it is on some reader boards, but to kind of always have that in the back of your mind.
Yes, absolutely. Agree. And we'll make sure that that is incorporated in the plan as well. I think that's it. Nothing further. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, the next point of interest, utility wrap update. So Shannon.
Well, good evening, again, commissioners. I'm joined here tonight with Erin Quinn Valcho, who I'm going to promote here. So Erin should be coming in here in just a second. I'm going to share the screen and we'll pick up a project that we started previously with the Commission on Equity last year. And since then, we've been doing some diligence and looking up into some voices that we might want to highlight with our utility project. So just really quickly, and just confirming that Erin is with us.
I am here.
Fantastic. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you.
So just as a reminder and a refresher for everybody here, as well as somebody who might be watching that this is new to. So the city is looking to do a art project here in 2023. The city has an adopted art plan, and one of the items called out in the art plan was utility wraps, and to start taking a look at a utility wrap program. And specifically what we wanted to do with the utility wrap project in 2023 was to really focus and highlight on important voices that were representative of the community, past and present. And the idea being that we want to start slow to go fast. So we want to start off with around 10 to 12 to 15 or so individuals or organizations to recognize for their impact on the community. Again, whether it was in the past or currently, or possibly in the future. As part of this project, we don't plan on doing any of the artwork ourselves. You all don't want to really see me draw anything. So we're going to go out through a competitive process through a request for qualification for artists. And just some background on what this process looks like. You basically go out into the greater community and you say, what is your background and what are some art pieces, that maybe you can show us what your experience is in the past, so we can kind of judge, based on those prior experiences, if you're qualified to move forward in this process. Once we would identify those individuals, we'd select the artists, and we'd have the artists indicate maybe their top couple of selection of individuals or organizations that they'd like to feature. And then they would be assigned an artist and they would design several art pieces. In this case, we're hoping for at least 2 designs per utility box. So that way we can go back out to the community and say, we really want to highlight these voices. Which one as a piece of art do you prefer? So once we got some feedback on what the preference was, we would be able to go out and put up the utility wraps on the boxes. And an important piece would be to connect the artist's piece with information. So looking to incorporate, QR codes in the future so that people can look up, not only who the artist is and what the art piece is called, but, so that they can also get more information on the individual and the organization and the impact they've had on the Lacey community. As part of surveying the community too for a preferred design, we also want to take that opportunity to reach out to the community and see for subsequent phases, who might be other individuals or organizations that we want to highlight with a future round of utility wrap box projects. So I won't read through every single one of these bullet points. I know we've done this before, but really what I just wanted to show you all was the connectivity with the adopted art policy. So the utility wrap project meets the objectives, to reflect Lacey's history, heritage, community values, and culture. As an example, we are looking to, as far as themes, really focus on the rich diversity of the community. as well as the rest of the bullet points listed there. And then for locations, we haven't determined any locations for the potential reps. We do have some possibilities that we want to take a look at today, but nothing is final. We need to work with our Public Works Department and our Parks Department to really finalize the locations of the potential utility rep. But we really do want to make sure that they are connected to the community, you know, whether it's at a activity hub or a, you know, around a city building or city facilities, et cetera. So that was a really quick overview of what we've talked about at our previous Commission on Equity meeting. And now I'm really going to hand it over for the rest of the presentation to Erin Quinn Valcho, who has put together a lot of information on some possibilities of voices that we might want to highlight with our 2023 project for utility reps. And really the purpose for tonight is for Erin to introduce them, for us to have a conversation about, you know, moving forward. And then for next steps, which I'll wrap up again as we get closer to the end of this presentation, we really want to make sure that we can go back to the community members that we select, if we know of any living representatives, and confirm with them that they'd like to continue to move forward with this process. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Erin, and Erin's going to provide you with an overview of some draft utility wrap project profiles.
Thank you, Shannon. Before I dive in, I just want to say thank you to the Commission on Equity for the really important work that you guys are doing. I'm so glad to be here and share with you some of these really interesting stories of the people of our community who've left a mark. So it will be so great to see these in artistic form around Lacey. So I'll just dive right in. First up here, you can see is the 1984 Women's Olympic Marathon Trials. It's hard to imagine now, but 1984 was the first year that women were allowed to compete in the marathon event during the Summer Olympics, which was held in Los Angeles that year. And only a small number of women, of course, who ran in the trials would go on to the Olympics. So this event was really a defining moment for a lot of women who ran, who could now have the option to make running their career. And Olympia remains the only city with a population under 120,000 people to host the event for men or women. So why include this event when it was in Olympia? Well, it was really a community-wide regional effort. 4,500 volunteers from the whole region, Lacey, Tumwater, Olympia, the county, made it possible. And the route did go through Lacey along College Street, 45th Avenue, Ruddle Road, and Lacey Boulevard. And athletes at the competition stayed at St. Martin's College then. And the city provided support, as did many other municipalities, with parking locations and safety in the form of police and fire, and a lot of event planning and things like that. You can move on to the next one. This is Lisa Brodoff and Lynn Grotsky. This couple has been together for over 40 years, and I think this is just an adorable picture. And they have 2 adult children. They have been at the forefront of the rights of same-sex couples for decades. And when their daughter Evan was born in 1987, Lisa was the one who was pregnant and biologically the mother. And they realized that Lynn, as the non-biological parent, was not going to have any rights if something happened to Lisa. And Lisa, being a lawyer, decided to take that to court. And so they won a second parent adoption case, which was a landmark case. It was so brilliantly written that it was used as the basis for many, many other state courts for the same type of case. And they were also the first in line to get their marriage license when that became legal in Washington state. You can go to the next one. So we reached out to the Nisqually tribe to ask who they would like to include on this list. And without hesitation, the response came back with Cecilia Smith Carpenter. Cecilia was a public school teacher, and she was so very disappointed with the textbook's information about the Native Americans and her tribe in particular that she embarked on what became a lifelong mission to meticulously research tribal history and eventually became the official tribal historian. And when she died at the age of 83, I think it was, she was still writing 2 books. Amazing woman. All right, next. I probably don't need to say too much to this group about Virgil Clarkson, but he is in this list because he became Lacey's first Black mayor in 2004 and was on the city council for almost 20 years and did so much for the community. Of course, advocating for seniors, and so much so that his name's now on the building. He's definitely was a community treasure. Next. Next up is the Evergreen Ballroom. This entertainment venue was located on Pacific Avenue, just east of Marvin Road. And although it seems an odd location for decades of America's top musical acts, it was at the sweet spot between Seattle and Portland, making it this perfect location for a stop between the 2 major cities when booking agents were trying to, you know, get as much bang for their buck as possible. It would take me a while to list all the famous acts that went through there over its 70 years of operation, so I won't. But another really cool thing is that because of the proximity to the base, that provided them with a diverse audience to market to, and even caused them some difficulties. And early on in its life, it was torched because rumor was that organizations, white supremacist organizations, were attacking the place for doing that. Thankfully, they quickly rebuilt, and it continued to serve the community for a long time. It did burn down again in 2000, and unfortunately isn't with us anymore. Next. Karen Frazier became Lacey's first female mayor in 1976. And at the time of her appointment, she was the first woman and the youngest person to be on Lacey's city council. She would go on to serve as a Thurston County Commissioner, a Washington State Representative, and Washington State Senator. During her tenure, the Lacey City Hall that we have today, although it was much smaller then, was built. She also, my favorite, helped establish the Lacey Museum and worked on improving transportation infrastructure. Next. The Fred U. Harris Lodge, number 70, is a historically Black Freemason organization. It probably shouldn't have surprised me, but it was really hard to find any sort of information on this in my usual historic records, but that just points out to me how much these voices really need to be heard. And Mr. Dixon, Lester Dixon, is one of the attendees at our meeting today, so I am hoping that he will forgive me if I say anything wrong. We just touched base today and he's going to get me some good information, so hopefully I did my best. It was established in 1980, and they were not recognized by a local mainstream read white people until 1993. And the lodge has celebrated Juneteenth in our community since 1983. And for the last 12 years, the event has been held in Lacey at the RAC. So we're really glad that they're a part of our community, and I look forward to learning a lot more about them. Jose Gutierrez, also known as Lava J or DJ Lava J, was a community activist who sadly lost his life in 2021 from complications due to COVID. I had a really hard time writing a short summary of what he accomplished because his life, short as it was, because he just had done so much. He was highly educated, multiple degrees, very accomplished. His passion for music, the youth of our community, and the homeless made a indelible mark on the many people he has touched. I enjoyed learning about his nonprofit, the Hip Hop for the Homeless of Washington. They had this 2-day festival with live performances on the first day that the audiences would pay for with donations of clothes, books, or anything that would be useful to the homeless. And then on the second day, the festival was turned over for the homeless, and they would redistribute those donations, have haircuts, professional massages, and a warm meal for the people who came. Next. Perhaps you were unaware, as I was, that Lacey played a very important role in aviation history. These are two of the women who were a part of that. The first on the left there is Vivian Ingram Hicks. She was issued a pilot's license in 1931, and she was the first woman in Southwest Washington to do so, although she had done her first solo flight quite a long before that. And on the right, her friend, Gladys Broker, was a part of a groundbreaking program called the Civilian Pilot Training Program. This was developed by the federal government as a test to see if they could train pilots for the military, ultimately for the military, in what would eventually become the Air Force. Due to an incredible series of circumstances, St. Martin's College would be the site of one of these test programs. And Gladys Broker became an instructor for the ground school there at St. Martin's. And because of that, she was the first woman to teach at St. Martin's. Next up is Nat and Thelma Jackson, who really need no introduction at this point, right? Especially since Thelma's there in the room. These two have dedicated their lives to creating a better community in Lacey and beyond, and have worked to advance racial equity and systemic change to provide equal opportunities and affirmative action in government, education, business, criminal justice, and healthcare. And we are so grateful as a community for their service. Lacey, oh, I'm out of order. Did you miss one? You must have copied it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
there might be some out of order at this point, but I don't think we skipped ahead at this.
Okay, I fixed it on mine, but you must be using a different version, so it's fine. All right. So when I was asked to put together this list, Jean Liddell was the first person who came to my mind. She was the first Filipina to be mayor of any city in the United States, which I think is pretty incredible first for us. And as mayor, she worked to promote diversity in the community, and programs to assist disadvantaged women and youth, as well as preservation and rehabilitation of the environment. And it was during her time that Lacey was named a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation. And we have maintained that distinction every year since that first year in 1992. Lacey formed a sister city program in 2003, and the community organization that developed out of that selected Minsk Mazowiecki, I don't know how to say it right, so Polish people forgive me, in Poland because of its similarities to Lacey in size and government structure and an enthusiasm for the cultural exchange. There were also some people in Lacey who had connections to the community, which made it all the more a good choice. And for 20 years, the two communities have participated in cultural exchanges, with adults and teens going back and forth. This picture at the top there is of students from North Thurston High School and the city orchestra in Minsk performing together in Poland. And last year, the organization raised money for Ukrainian refugees who are now living in Minsk, Mazowiecki. This picture is of the Lacey Women's Club Kitchen Band. If you look closely, you can see that their instruments are made of household implements and their hats from metal cans. It's hilarious. The Women's Club was founded almost a century ago, ironically as an auxiliary to a men's service organization called the Elephants Club, but they have outlasted their counterpart by more than 50 years. They built their clubhouse in 1937, which still stands in Lacey's historic neighborhood, right next to the museum. And it's on the Lacey Register of Historic Places. And they've spent decades supporting charitable organizations with their volunteer work and donations. So everyone knows that Sequim is the lavender capital of North America. That's their registered trademark for real. But most people don't know that that would not have been possible without the experimentation and development of lavender cultivation right here in Lacey by L.J. Wyckoff. He pioneered the first commercial cultivation of lavender in the United States on his farm in what is now the southern tip of Lacey in the Horizon Point area. His lavender was of such high quality that it was praised and used by Yardley and Company of London, which had very high standards. He has lavender varieties that he developed that were named after him. And I think this is a really cool thing to have happened here in Lacey. They did, of course, figure out that the climate in Sequim was kind of perfect for lavender, which is why we don't still grow lavender here. And that ends my profiles. So turn that back to you, Shannon.
So thank you, Erin, for all the work you did on finding information on these individuals. So again, we're here tonight, though, to get some feedback on the list, and we'd like to get some recommendations from the Commission on Equity and then take it back at before the historical board before taking it further in the process.
I didn't know all of this about the city of Lacey. That's pretty awesome.
I have a recommendation. First of all, I'm honored that my husband and I are listed on this list, but there's a person I'd like to recommend for consideration, and that's Barbara O'Neill. You all familiar with Barbara? I know you're a newcomer to here. For more than 20 years during the holidays, she fed more than 20,000 people in this community. She was an icon. When did Barbara pass? 10, 15 years ago, maybe. But the annual feeding through United Churches and all of this, it was just a ritual in this community. She was on the board of the Washington State Employees Credit Union. She had a lot to do with handicap accessibility in this state on the flattened curbs we see going on a sidewalk. But she lived right out there on Quinault, right off of Marvin Road before you get to the freeway. Lived in Lacey here the whole time she was here. So Barbara O'Neill, O''N''E''I''L''. And there's a profile of her in that history book that I wrote. So Barbara O'Neill, and a lovely picture as well. But she's been a part of this Lacey history, and you don't read or hear much about her. But, you know, Thurston County, homeless people, furniture giveaway, clothes giveaway, started out of a home and it expanded and more and more and more. But thousands of people were fed through her Friends and Family program. So I would recommend her for consideration of one of these profiles.
Commissioner Jackson, we will certainly do some more diligence on Barbara O'Neill.
About the couple, Lynn and Lisa. Lynn was also one of the founders of Pizza Klatch, which is incredibly important to some of our youth.
And Vice Chair Clay will certainly make sure that any future narrative reflects that as well for the materials that go out on the request for qualifications, as well as any materials that would be listed on the website as well. So commissioners, I'm here tonight again, just to maybe to get kind of a verbal, yes, it's a good list to proceed with the addition of taking a look at Barbara O'Neill.
Yes.
Concur, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Fantastic. Well,
It's exciting.
great work. Thank you for the information.
yeah, thank you
Research.
so much for the
welcome.
work that you have done to put this together.
Thank you. Thelma, I've been meaning to get in touch with you and get a copy of the book for the museum, so that probably works out.
We'll have to connect and do that for sure.
Yes. Okay, sounds good.
So just to, again, to kind of wrap up with next steps, we'll move forward with this list with the addition of taking a look at Barbara O'Neill. And then hopefully going back in front of the historical board as well for an overview and seek recommendations from them as well. And then we want to reach out to known living relatives for approval to continue with this process. Erin has done this with a number of the individuals, but we want to make sure to try to reach out to as most as we possibly can. And then from there, creating that request for qualifications. I know it says proposal here, but really it's going to be a request for qualification, going through the selection of the artist and then gathering community input for the art pieces. And then hopefully we'll have some very exciting utility wraps in the community that tell people a little bit more about our history and the impact these individuals and organizations had on our community.
Sounds great. So shall we move on to Commissioner's report? A is the senior services for the South Sound presentation. I believe Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Brown went to that, right?
Right. It went well. We didn't have that many participants. What were there, 6 people? 8 people there. But they gave us good information. We had specific questions that we raised that we wanted to focus on their comments. And it was a lively, good conversation, I thought, and we got a lot of input from them from the point of view of our senior citizens as a focus group, an affinity group that we wanted to make sure we had their input as it relates to making Lacey a more equitable community. And I think there's some good notes and some comments under each of these. I'll give you an idea that summarizes how some of that conversation went. But they appreciated us asking for their input. As a disenfranchised group that's normally not asked for their input. And so it was there at the senior center, which made it convenient for those who did attend. And we had a good exchange.
Good, great, sounds great. And thank you for the notes. I'm gonna add that to our stack of community comment. Okay, now the focus group with community members. Just kind of looking at what we have coming up. Is that?
But we have the first one coming up for the African-American community. And the date that we've decided to go with that is going to be Tuesday, March 21st at 6:30 at the New Life Baptist Church in the Fellowship Hall. So that gives us about 3 weeks to get some flyers, some outreach, some announcements, some publicity, that kind of thing. But that one was the first one for the first quarter, then one per quarter through the remainder of the year. So that's the venue. And Cliff and I have met with the pastor and gotten his concurrence in the partnership with Lacey. So now we're just at the part of working out the details and, the agenda and make sure the questions are similar to what we asked the seniors and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But once we got the date nailed down, trying to avoid other significant dates of the week, so that's the date, Tuesday, March 21st at 6:30.
All right, very, very good. You're on it.
Well, it's creeping up real fast.
Yeah,
Had to get on it.
yeah,
First
quarter
quarter,
comes
almost
through,
over.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second quarter, I've committed to doing an LGBTQIA plus, and maybe John will help me with that. So got some ideas on the table. Any other committee? Ask something.
You
Vice Chair
froze.
Clay, you froze for a second. We missed maybe the last sentence or two.
Oh. Well, I've been doing pretty good.
The last thing we heard was that you and potentially John were going to be helping coordinate the second quarter.
Yes, so then I am asking if any of the commissioners have things to bring up in this report time.
I've been a little chatty tonight, but I do have one other thing that I'd like to share with the commissioners. We're just wrapping up Black History Month. And for the month of February, the New Life Baptist Church embarked upon a rather ambitious undertaking. What started out as just a pop-up museum in our facility grew and expanded and morphed into something much greater than we had anticipated. And we wound up opening it up to the public last Saturday from 1 to 3. We had enough requests to open it up to the public. And 165 people went through our museum in 2 hours. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. And we asked for comments as they were leaving, and the comments kind of centered around, please open it up for longer periods of time. Please do this again next year. Please do it, for more than just February. Can we help you find a permanent place?
Mm-hmm.
We're just overwhelmed at the artifacts and artwork and old newspapers and old magazines that people in our congregation just came together, and a person that curated it all. And it was beyond our wildest expectations. So towards the last minute, we decided to share it with the public. A lot of requests to bring classes through as field trips.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot to think about and a lot to discuss about where we go from here, because we've dismantled it now other than our walls, but things on the floor we had to take down, to do a funeral for our deceased deacon, John Grace. And then we had the big celebratory dinner yesterday after church, but it turned out to be much more fantastic in any of our wildest expectations. And the people who came through were really appreciative of us sharing it with them. So we don't know what we've started here, but I tell you, it was amazing. So I just wanted to report and share that. And Commissioner Sauer came through. We had a panel discussion at the end of it. Kim, what were your thoughts? I was glad to see you there.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned. I guess my feelings the same. I didn't know what to expect. Of course, hearing from every panel members there was just excellent. I thought, a lot of those folks are elderly. I mean, I don't know elderly anymore, but what I'm trying to say is that they are the walking history, and we need to hear more from people like that, that directly coming from their live experience. And that was very, very meaningful to me, and bring the community together, and hearing the experience and the work, and people coming together to listen and participate. Yes, it blew my mind. I thought that was excellent event, and I would have definitely given all those review and comments same way. I'd like to see more. And I talked about it at work. They wanted to do an article about it. Kim, did you take any photos? I only took a couple photos, but I was hoping that I took more photos, especially with the panels and speakers. And I told your husband that whenever I see him, he's been kind of quiet, but at that day, he was most vocal and very, very passionate. So that was great to also learn about him too. So yeah, overall, that was excellent. So thank you for presenting that event.
Yeah, I was so sorry I had to miss it. We were on our way down here south.
Well, the Olympia newspaper has posted on their website a video.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So you might want to check it out there. But
Mhm.
yeah, they gave us great coverage, but they also did an extended video
Oh, great.
that
Very
gives you a visual and, you know, some walking narratives and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, next, the director's report. Shannon?
Thank you, Vice Chair Clay. I've got a few things I want to share with you all. So I'm going to share the screen really quickly. So we are coming up on our Lacey Cultural Celebration, and it is going to be on March 4th at St. Martin's University from 10 a.m. To 6 p.m. And the city's Commission on Equity is going to be a information booth there like we were last year. This year, we've got a really great lineup for the Lacey Cultural Celebration, and I am looking to get some commissioners to help with the booth itself with a couple of shifts. So just like last year, I've split it up into 3 shifts. Each shift is for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that would get us through the duration of the Lacey Cultural Celebration. So we've got the first shift going from 10 to 12:45 p.m. and then shift B going from 12:45 to 3:15 p.m. And then the final shift going from 3:15 to 6 p.m. And so I wanted to check in with you all and to see if I could get some commissioners at each of the shifts moving forward.
I'm gonna try and see if I can do the last shift. Because if I can get my husband and my daughter, who's now a driver, to come at the end of the day, they can help me clean up, and then I can be over at the board shift or for the commission shift. So let me work on that.
Okay, great.
I could do shift B. I have a 10:30 meeting, but I can leave that meeting and come on to the gym. The pavilion. Shift B.
Great.
I will not be home yet, so sorry.
Oh, I will be, I'll take shift A then. Or, yeah, wherever needed. I'll try to set the date for this.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. And I'll send out all of this information too in my follow-up and confirm kind of where the meeting is.
Okay.
So something else I just wanted to highlight really quickly with the cultural celebration is this year, the idea would be to do it a little bit different than what we've done in the last year. So to make it more interactive, we're going to have a spin wheel activity, which will allow youth members to spin a wheel, and they can get one of the pencils, the pens, or some candy that we'll have. But in addition to that, what we're planning on setting up is an engagement activity. So it's going to have these 4 panels. And it'll allow community members to stop on by the booth and to provide input on the questions that the commission has asked other community members, including how we can create a more welcoming community, any concerns about racism and equity in the community, and how could we increase participation and reduce barriers. So very similar to the questions that we've asked before, just trying to get some additional feedback as part of the activity booth at the cultural celebration. Any questions, commissioners?
Do you have your spin the wheel?
We do, yes, we were able to find one. I know you offered.
I had
so-
a game, so yeah, awesome. And so are we gonna have them spin the wheel and then maybe they wanna ask a question, or how are they gonna engage? Cause we don't have any. Oh, so okay, so those are the questions there. We're just kind of getting their feedback on those things. If they spin the wheel and they maybe hit on participation, we want to get some of the feedback from the question that's asked under participation.
One, that's actually a great question, Commissioner Hart. The way I had envisioned it, but certainly welcome changing it, is that, you kind of draw maybe the youth members in by spinning the wheel. And while the youth members are spinning the wheel, it's the great opportunity to say, hey, would you be interested, maybe for the adults or parents, to provide a sticky note on one of these panels really quickly. So they could, write down, maybe I'd like to see more, I'll just use the example of youth recreation for, just as an example, and they could put it on that second to the left panel, and then it'd be a sticky note that was up there that other community members could see, and then people could continue to add their thoughts on moving forward.
Jamboard style.
Good.
Yep, yes, yeah, copying the Jamboard.
Nice. Well, we also have the flyers for the upcoming March.
Yeah, we should have.
Yeah, the March engagement. that you guys-
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be working with Shannon and her resources in the city. She's got a great graphic designer that does a great job on posters and flyers, so. Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah, we'll have,
And we'll get those electronically. If I'm not here, I could send it to people I know.
absolutely, we'll make sure a digital copy gets out to all of the commissioners. So we'll certainly have, an advertisement for the focus group. But we'll also have some information too on if there are any advisory board opportunities as well, just to make sure that information
Good.
continues to get out, and then also just information on the Commission on Equity.
Good.
My second item that I wanted to talk through with you all is the joint meeting with the City Council that is coming up on March 9th. As part of the packets that I sent you all, I provided the work plan that we discussed back at the end of 2022. And the opportunity with the joint meeting is to go over that work plan and seek approval of that work plan. And so I want to continue to use the model that we used last year, where all of the commissioners got an opportunity to talk about an item that was identified in the work plan. And so I've broken up the meeting elements that are part of the meeting and in the work plan. And so what I'd like to do is send this all out to you all, and for you all to chime in on if there is a particular element that you'd be interested in providing. So, providing kind of an update on the commissioners, the activities that we did in 2022, and then focusing on the work that we're going to be looking to do in 2023 as part of the identified work plan. And then having it open for questions and conversation with the Lacey City Council after that.
What are the hours of that joint meeting?
So the joint meeting is going to start at 6 o'clock, and it's Thursday, March 9th. And it's here at City Hall. And last time we did it, we were all remote, but this time you'll have the opportunity to come in person, and we'll be set up in this chambers right here in a giant U-shaped, so we can get all of the commissioners and council members together.
Feel free to stick me anywhere you got a hole, need plugging.
I actually have a conflict that day. I got invited to go to the WEA Chinook Black History Month dinner that was postponed from the 23rd of February. I'm supposed to be speaking at that engagement. So I don't know what the layout of that day is gonna look like, but it starts at 5 and goes till 8. So,
So your participation in that is important. We'll
Yes.
cover for you here. Mhm.
And that was an event that was supposed to happen last week, but got postponed because of the
Yeah, the
weather,
weather,
so, yeah. All right, well, commissioners, that is all I have for you. I'll send out again this kind of the activities, and please, if you could just send me back a couple that you might be interested in so that we can break up the presentation to the Lacey City Council.
Okay, it's looking forward to it. Anything else? If nothing else, we will adjourn.
Great. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Adjourn at 8:15.
Right.